The first thing you learn in Geneva's fracture zone is that chronology is negotiable. The second thing you learn is the exchange rate. A single sunrise, properly bottled, will buy you 3 safe hours behind reinforced concrete. A 7-day arc is worth a hot meal plus an escort through the static storms on the lake shore. And a whole unbroken lifetime, if you're lucky enough to find one, can purchase something approaching peace, though never permanence. Maya kept those rates in her head the way pre-fall traders once memorized currency tables. Clutching a mildewed knapsack, she crossed the boulevard that used to be Rue de Lauzon, stepping over splintered tram rails that glowed with after-images of yesterday. The air wavered, a heat haze without heat. Temporal radiation from the shattered particle accelerator buried kilometers below the city. That radiation bit into reality like acid, dissolving cause from effect and crumpling them together. In its fizzing halo, the survivors flickered through overlapping loops, repeating minutes or weeks in stuttering spirals unless they could bribe themselves free. At the old botanical garden, a bronze statue of an enlightened botanist blinked between verdigris and polished shine as centuries slid back and forth across its surface. A handful of scavengers huddled beneath the shifting figure, skating the edge of a 30-minute loop. They looked up at Maya with eyes that had seen too many resets, the sclera spider-webbed with chrono burns. She knew that look. She had carried it herself when the loops first caught her. She passed them by. She had no minutes to spare, and descended into what had been an underground car park. In a half-collapsed concrete cavern, sodium lamps buzzed, anchored to diesel generators that someone restarted at the top of every cycle. Lines of barbed wire formed spirals on the ground, denoting safe paths through the ricocheting timelines. And in the center, standing behind a butcher's counter salvaged from a ruined supermarket, waited the dealer. He was a tall, narrow man, his age impossible to guess, because he wore it like everything else, fragmented. One moment, his beard was black. The next, it grayed. The next, it vanished entirely. The ambient loops licked at him, but he never repeated his words. That immunity made him valuable and dangerous in equal measure. "Maya of the Eastern Spire," he greeted, tongue tasting each syllable as if it were wine. "What time do you carry today?" She slid the knapsack onto his counter and unzipped it. Inside lay 4 glass ampules, resembling elongated teardrops. Inside each glimmered a faint aurora, the bottled essence of days, siphoned with equipment older than the cataclysm. Black market artisans called it chronite, condensed potential, scooped out of stable stretches of duration and sealed before paradox could spoil it. 36 hours apiece, she said. You know my calibration. The dealer weighed the vials on a set of pocket scales. Though mass meant little, it was ritual, a pantomime to prove seriousness. He nodded appreciatively. "Pure, no stray echoes." Maya's shoulders sank in relief. A single contaminating echo and unresolved elsewhen collapse an ampule into glass shards and unanchored time, killing memories the way gamma radiation kills cells. She needed them intact. "I want 2 weeks," she said. "Continuous, no bleed through, and not circulated more than twice." His eyebrows rose. "Ambitious. May I ask what drama inspires such need?" "My brother," she swallowed. The fallback loop in the hospital district shrank again. "He's down to 18 seconds. He can't even finish a breath before it starts over." The dealer drummed long fingers on metal. 18 seconds is nearly recognizable, he mused. Some poor souls bargain from 3, but kinship presses heavier than numbers, doesn't it? Maya kept her face still. "Do we have a deal?" "In principle." He produced a paper ledger, actual paper, precious and fragile, and leafed through pages covered in tight notation. "I can grant you a fortnight, contiguous, unblemished, but the price—" He tapped his quill. 2 lifetimes. Her breath snagged. "That's insane." "Everyone says that at first," he replied, mild, "until they count the cost of alternatives." She stepped back, fighting the spinning in her head. Lifetimes were near mythic. 30,000 days, uncut, undiluted, harvested only when someone outside the fracture zone willingly relinquished the rest of their natural span. Exiles occasionally did it, trading future years they doubted they'd live for the chance to rewrite one perfect hour with a dead lover. Yet, Even then, brokers marked up the price until it scraped the stratosphere. "You know, I can't source that," Maya whispered. He shrugged. "Then your brother remains a goldfish gasping in a bowl of seconds." Maya left before her temper did something unwise. She climbed the ruined street, inhaling fumes of burning plastic, where a looped explosion repeated beneath the remains of an office tower, each detonation identical, each puff of smoke the same gray smear before a reset swallowed it. She pressed her back to a cracked wall and closed her eyes. 2 lifetimes. Impossible. Unless she found the archivist. Everyone in the fracture zone knew the archivist by rumor. People claimed he lived in the accelerator's deepest tunnel, a labyrinth of supercooled wreckage where the original breach had torn the continuum. They said he studied loops, cataloged them, balanced them like spinning plates, to prevent everything from slipping into static oblivion. They said he'd barter anything for information. Maya had information. She had seen the inside of the Pantheon loop 30-year span, almost pristine when she'd guided a caravan around the Italian border. Only a handful knew its entry vectors. That knowledge might fetch a lifetime. Maybe 2. Decision made, she headed east. The city's outskirts were strata of broken eras. She hurried through 1930s alleyways that abruptly unfolded into glistening near futures, then collapsed back to the post-fall present. Road signs mutated languages mid-sentence. Dogs barked echoes 2 minutes late. Maya kept to the columns of rebar and copper wire that temporal salvers had erected. Those metals bled off chronocharge, giving travelers a chance at consistency. At dusk, though, dusk was theoretical when the sun sometimes looped its descent. She reached the accelerator's old service shaft, a yawning borehole fringed by frost. The beam pipe, once kept at near 0 Kelvin, still exhaled ghost cold even after the helium vents burst. Maya donned a woolen cap, descended a ladder that flickered between rusted and newly painted, and dropped onto a platform of welded mesh. The lower she went, the louder the fragments of history. Voices detached from bodies, arguments caught on loops, laughter that belonged to no throats still living. She tightened the straps on her pack. At 500 meters, she found the archivist's door, an airlock salvaged from a spacecraft, its surface scrawled with equations that refused to stay still. She rapped twice in the old scientist's code: short, long. A creak, then the hatch yawned. Warm orange light spilled over her boots. A figure loomed, spare, stooped, hair tied back with copper wire. Silver spectacles flashed. "Maya del Or," he greeted. He pronounced it in the archaic Spanish style, as if tasting authenticity. "Enter carefully. The floor resets every 94 seconds." Inside, the tunnel was lined with metal catwalks suspended over a chasm of twisted superconducting coils. On desks, oscilloscopes jittered, holographic readouts scrolled in Mobius strips. The archivist guided her to a bench that looked simultaneously worn and new. "How did you know my name?" she asked. "I remember things that haven't happened," he said matter of fact. "It's easier when I write them down before I forget I know them." He tapped a notebook whose pages were filled with 2 columns, done and to do. Some items had identical timestamps. She nodded. "Normal enough, dear." "What brings a courier to my sub-basement?" She inhaled, then let the words tumble. "I need 2 weeks, seamless. I have 4 days in Ampule and the location of the Pantheon loop. Will you trade?" He leaned back. Behind lenses, his eyes were pale green, alert. "I'm familiar with the Pantheon. I can plot its centron, within 6 meters, she added. "Entry requires a microburst of field inversion at 2.4 Tesla, which I can replicate with portable superconductors. I'm the only scout who's verified that. Useful." He folded his hands. "But you require more than days. You require living time duration with causal integrity. That's rarer now." She waited. "I can give you 1 lifetime," he said at last. "Not 2. For 2, I would demand not merely coordinates, but permanence. A loop whose ends are untied, a stretch of infinity I can study without interference." Maya's pulse quickened. A lifetime buys me what? 7 days. 7. Half of what she needed, but already more than she possessed. My brother will suffocate on the mirror of his own breath, she murmured. I am sorry, and he sounded it, which made it worse. She rose. Thank you for your time, archivist. He didn't stop her. The door clicked shut behind. Maya climbed 3 rungs before sitting on a swaying step. Below, the tunnel thrummed with caged seconds. Above, the city glimmered like a snow globe, shaking itself into new shapes. She pressed her palms to her eyes and saw him, Noah, staring at the second hand of a clock that never advanced. 16 years old forever. 2 lifetimes. The dealer had not been making an idle threat. He knew, as she now knew, that only one cache remained large enough. The Vault of Reclamation. Guarded by the Continuity Council. The council had arisen from the Accelerator's research team, plus the politicians who survived the initial implosion. From their headquarters in the Palais des Nations, they rationed time the way pre-F authorities rationed water and drought. Their agents enforced strict conservation, seizing unlicensed loops and taxing fresh moments. Rumor claimed their vault contained hundreds of lifetimes, collected from terrified refugees who fled the zone's edge and liquidated their futures for passage to stable territories. If she wanted 2 lifetimes, she would have to steal them. Maya had broken into the Palais once before, in a different loop. She remembered alarms, dogs echoing twice, a bullet that struck her shoulder until reset erased the wound. She remembered failure and escape, but memory was malleable. Nothing guaranteed the council had the same layout now. She descended again to the archivist's door. He opened before she knocked. You changed your mind, he said. Not exactly. Her voice trembled. I'm going after the vault. I need schematics, passcodes, anything. You want a loop that's untied. Help me, and if I make it out with the lifetimes, I'll owe you a favor of equal magnitude. He studied her. A favor is vague. I'm vague, she snapped, then caught herself. And desperate. Silence, filled by the tick of a metronome whose needle reversed direction each beat. Finally, he nodded. Very well, but understand. If you breach the vault, you may destabilize their containment lattice. A flood of raw chronite could freeze sections of the zone in perpetual stasis, or shatter them into non-being, I understand. And if you're captured, you'll be quarantined in a microloop, interrogated on endless rotation. I know. Then we plan. They unrolled parchment maps paper resisted chronoflux better than digital screens, and plotted entry through service corridors, still wired for 1970S analog security. The archivist provided a device, a brass pocket watch grafted to a coil of niobium tin. Temporal dissonance counter, he explained. When the second hand hesitates. It'll shield you for 4, maybe 5 resets. When she left, she carried lockpicks, 2 ampules of bottled days, her emergency fund, and the watch ticking irregular seconds. Night in Geneva was a tangle. Street lamps blinked Morse proverbs, stars slid sideways, and in the Rue Non, water flowed both up and down. Maya hugged shadows, bypassed patrols whose boots stamped out syncopated rhythms. The Palais stood on a hill, white facade cracked but intact, banners of the old United Nations flapping between instants. She scaled a lattice of fire escapes, bypassed a camera whose lens showed her yesterday's self, and dropped into corridor 3B. Footsteps echoed behind her, but when she turned, the hallway was reversed. Door frames opened onto ceilings. She breathed through panic, wound the pocket watch. Reality tightened. The vault lay beneath the assembly hall, behind a vault door mechanical enough to resist most radiative interference. She knelt, inspected the tumbler. Triple redundancy, 109-pin key. Picking would take hours. She did not own, but she had minutes, literally. From her coat she withdrew an ampule, smashed it against the hinge. The glass vaporized into a roar. For 36 severed seconds the door's metal existed 1 microsecond out of sync with itself. She pushed. It parted like fog. Inside, crystalline cylinders stacked floor to ceiling, each glowing faintly. Tags listed names, dates, sometimes simple human regrets. Dr. Time to finish her thesis. Galena M. See sunrise on another world. A digital counter hovered above. 927.42 lifetimes in reserve. Maya's throat tightened. So much hope, hoarded like gold. She selected 2 nearer cylinders, each warm with possibility. She slid them into padded loops on her belt. Behind her, an alarm klaxon began a roar that hit, then rewound, then hit again. Glass trembled. Council guards swarmed the corridor. She glimpsed uniforms stitched with hourglass insignia. Gun barrels gleamed. She ducked behind the shelving, heart battering. Think. Egress route compromised. Another door opposite the vault flickered. A maintenance shaft. Maybe. But the archivist wanted something permanent, untied. She set the cylinders gently on the floor. Then she ran deeper into the repository, past aisle after aisle until she reached a wall of obsidian panels. Embedded glyphs pulsed once per second loop. In the center, a crystalline sarcophagus contained a swirl so bright it painted shadows on her retinas. Above it, infinite reserve, no lifetimes, empty. Untied. Her breath fogged. This was a 0-point loop, a space where time had decoupled entirely, neither advancing nor repeating. Pure potential. Exactly what the archivist craved, and exactly what she needed for leverage. Bullets sparked on metal behind her. She smashed the panel's control crystal with her elbow. The sarcophagus hissed open, releasing a sheet of nothingness that smelled like silence. She felt herself stretch, past, present, future, all visible at once. She saw Noah exhaling in a hospital bed. She saw herself as a child. She saw possibility branching like trees on fire. She stepped inside. Time convulsed. She expected pain, but felt only weightlessness. She was standing in the sarcophagus, yet also outside, watching herself. She reached and fused. Versions merged into cohesion. When she stepped back onto the concrete, alarms had ceased. Footprints ghosted, then dissolved. The guards were frozen mid-stride, pale as wax. The cylinders on her belt vibrated, overwhelmed. She hurried to them, uncertain they were contamination sensitive. But they held. The maintenance shaft led out to an access tunnel under the gardens. She surfaced at dawn, at least a version of dawn, clutching enough chronology to rewrite 2 lives. The dealer was already at his counter when she arrived, though she could have sworn she hadn't. He eyed the cylinders. Counterfeit? Authentic, she said. Council mint. He turned one over. Stolen, he corrected. Does it matter? To me, less than to them. He produced a weighing cloth, then paused. 2 lifetimes for 2 weeks, as agreed. Wait, she set a hand on the glass. 1 lifetime for 7 days. The other I'm donating to the refugee encampment at Carouge. Their children are trapped in 40-hour loops. Let them breathe. His expression flickered through surprise, calculation, maybe admiration. Done. He produced a ribbon of time 14 sunrise-marked beads, strung like pearls, and placed it in her palm. It felt heavy, warm. When she stepped out of the car park, dawn again ignited copper roofs. She hurried toward the hospital district, wading through echoes until she found Noah's ward. It was as she feared. Rooms fractured into slivers, nurses repeating incomplete gestures. She pressed her forehead to the glass of his isolation cubicle. He lay there, chest jerking every 18 seconds, eyes wide with terror. She uncapped the strand of time, whispered his name, and fed the first bead into the loop. The ward shimmered. The seconds expanded. Noah inhaled, longer this time. She fed another bead, and the loop stretched into minutes. Another bead, shoes. With the 7th, she anchored a full week, sewed it shut. The space around him calmed. Clocks moved forward. Staff blinked, confused but free. Noah pushed himself upright. Maya? His voice cracked on unpracticed syllables. She laughed, cried, both. I'm here. He looked at her wrists, at the scars where chronoburns once traced spirals. How long have we got? 7 good days. She squeezed his hand. And after that, we'll figure it out. When she left the ward, the city's light felt less jagged, as if healing. She still carried the pocket watch. Its hands spun lazily, unstuck from any hour. Behind her, footsteps. The architect emerged from a ripple, spectacles glinting. "You found it," he said, reverent. "The untied place." She handed him a scrap of coordinates written in pencil, irascible, fragile. "Keep it safe," she said. He tucked it inside his coat. "And what will you do, courier, with 7 days?" "Live them," she answered. "Spend them like they matter." He smiled, an expression she now realized she had never seen on him. "May your investment yield wonder." Maya walked down what remained of Rue de Lausanne, sun on her face, time in her pocket. Ahead lay the ceaseless barter of moments, but for now, she and Noah owned a fortune of their own. One sunrise, then another, then 5 more in a row. Something precious enough to seem eternal, even if eternity around here was always for sale.